Hey family, I wanted to just take some time as I've had a lot of messages and inquiries and people reaching out, just asking about my Iboga experience. Um, and so I haven't had an opportunity to share one-on-one with each of you. And so I'm just going to relay my experience in this video for those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to connect with, for you to hear about my experience, my initiation with Iboga. So um, I understand the calling of a plant due to my prior experiences in working with these other sacred medicines, that there's an intelligence, a spirit to these plants and animals, and they begin to summon us through signs and synchronicities. And last year I had several souls that I was serving medicine to that had experienced Iboga, and in their relaying their experiences to me, there was an emotional reaction and just this deep yearning to explore and experience, what this particular plant had to share. And I know that many people are called to different plants for various reasons. Iboga being a really powerful tool, a very powerful medicine for many individuals that are suffering from opiate addiction. Addiction itself, it seems to be, a really, really powerful tool. And that this plant has, a specific, I think all of these plants, work in unique and specific ways. I think that the destination of where they're trying to lead us into our hearts, into loving ourselves, into understanding the divine nature that we are, and shedding conditioning and programming, is the work with all of these sacred medicines. They each have their own unique expression and will guide us in a journey in their own unique way. So I know that a lot of people have been asking, well, like, isn't that for addiction? And yes, in my past, very heavily addicted to opiates. And, it's been many years since entangling in that. So that was not my intention. Primarily what I began to find last year, I had a really, really turbulent year mentally and emotionally. A lot of the work that I did, even in the jungle with my maestro, with my Shipibo maestro, was just processing and feeling a tremendous amount of fear. But I found myself having difficulty in connecting with ayahuasca, and which wasn't anything new, but this kind of recurring theme, and then the stories that I would tell myself, which I feel are pretty prevalent to individuals that I hold space for when we are doing retreats, is that when people aren't connecting in a specific way, or in a way in which they deem necessary, they start thinking there's something wrong with me, not understanding that these medicines are working in their own unique specific way. It's not that they don't work. Often we have expectations, and our awareness and our mind is fixated on experiencing a particular thing, and that may not be what the plant wants to show us. I have learned and continue to be humbled and to be reminded that we don't make demands on these spirits, that we come with intention and with an open heart and an open mind, and we trust in the unfolding of what is revealed and what is given to us. So, again, this was a very long process in the actual execution and, the process of getting to sit with Iboga. Worked through a tremendous amount of adversity. And I also understand that when we make the decision to work with a medicine, that the spirit already begins to work with us. Before we even arrive to work with the actual medicine, that we are already in ceremony, we are already in process. And so now, on the other side, looking back at when I made the decision and all of the events that began to unfold and transpire at that time, that at one point, Iboga was off the table due to some life circumstances and changes. And as those shifts began to change, and I'll just speak to it, because I think it's important for some individuals to actually feel into, some of the things that I've been experiencing, and to start, I would say, kind of taking away some of that sting or fear of sharing. I in November had discovered that I was pregnant, and was really, really excited. I was actually in Costa Rica when the news came in, and told my partner, and he was like, I don't want to get excited until we know for sure. So once taking the test and had the confirmation, it was just like, all right, we're going to be parents and we're having a baby and beginning to plan our lives as such. I couldn't get an appointment to see the physician until 5 weeks, the OBGYN until after I had arrived home. And unfortunately, when I arrived to the physician's office, based on the information that we had, was told that I would be having a miscarriage. It was the furthest thing on my mind that would happen. And devastating news. I was shocked. I lost consciousness at that time. And it was on the solstice, on the darkest day of the year, that I began moving through miscarrying. And this was a very long process. So in essence, I was planning for Iboga. I had this information, and then once I was going through the miscarriage, and in that process, the spirit of Iboga kind of came back in, and I thought, well, once I move through and heal my body, heal through this process, I feel like now is even more of a time to enter into this space with what I've experienced. So had the retreat scheduled for, was accepted and received by the Nima. Nima is another name that we call the Iboga shaman. This woman who was deemed and blessed by the Bwiti tribe, who has a Bwiti temple built on her land, and holds very few ceremonies a year. And so, I was, again, given the opportunity to be able to come and to experience and receive this medicine. And Michael, my partner, agreed that he would also go through the journey as well. So I prepared my body for 2 months. So typically, preparation for any type of master plant or new consciousness, it's a typical 30-day preparation of purifying the body, becoming more mindful of what we're consuming, energy, foods, other medicines and stuff like this, to become, to start to create coherence, to make the space for this new spirit to enter in. So I spent 2 months, completely clearing my body, other than, the approval of microdosing, bufos. This is the primary medicine, that I work with, that I serve. And so April came around for us to have this experience. And I was really excited and had no clue what I was walking into. Obviously had, consulted with the Nima, and had already felt a very beautiful connection with her through the screen. And upon arriving to the space, I was mystified in and of itself of the actual land and of the beauty of nature in this really sacred container that we were going to enter into the space with. And the people, the shaman and her husband and her family, everyone was so welcoming. There was so much love, so much gratitude, so much kindness, and just purity from the support. And I felt a tremendous amount of fear that I wasn't going to connect with Iboga, because I was laying over a projection from my previous experiences with ayahuasca. And again, all this information adds up and is, appropriate and merges with the experience that I had. There's a totality to all of this leading up experience and thereafter that I'm getting to. We were given these really beautiful saunas and flower baths. So it was kind of a merge of Shipibo tradition, but also Bwiti tradition. So it was a kind of a purification process, and then receiving these blessings and the sacred protection from these plants as we sat and had these little saunas with these African huts that were put over us with the cauldron and various master plants to begin to allow the vapors to begin to enter in through the pores as someone played music. And so this was the preparation process before we entered into the temple. There was a wonderful musician, also a Bwiti tribe member from Gabon, who came to play the harp, which is the traditional vibration and sound instrument that is used from the Bwiti tribe in their culture, in their traditions, and working with the Iboga medicine. And so this temple was just unbelievable. It was so incredible. And, everyone had their own little mat, their little bed that they would stay in for the weekend, and their own assistant, sitting next to them to support them, if just in processing or moving. The medicine is very heavy on the body. So we drop in, first ceremony, and my partner, Michael, received a huge amount of Iboga. Again, his guides were directing the shaman that he needed to receive a tremendous amount of medicine. I would think that I was the second person I don't think there was anyone else that took 3 doses of Iboga in that evening. We worked with the actual Iboga root powder. And so shaman would serve us a mound that we would eat. And then also there were capsules, because it's just so much of the actual bark that it's really challenging to kind of like, put it in your mouth, and it struggles. So first dose was a pretty large macro dose of powder along with capsules, and then I went to lay down and just really, did the same thing that I try to do with ayahuasca and other plants, is just get into a place of surrender and just relax and just, go into a meditative state and just trust that the medicine will start working with you. And so this is what I did. And I don't know, I guess it was about an hour or so, I started feeling this really electric vibratory sensation begin moving through my body. It felt really hot in certain energy stations, but I could feel too this medicine primarily working in my brain. Just tremendous amount of vibration and buzzing, and then I started receiving visions. In the beginning, I didn't really understand what I was being shown. There was different landscapes and just kind of like zooming into different mountainscapes, landscapes, skyscapes, just different things. And then I started seeing babies. And for over an hour, I'm having a journey of watching little children, boys, babies, children of all different ages. And it was interesting because, again, my intention in setting out to do this work was, so I shared a little bit about my, last year and what I was feeling and what I was processing. I wanted to move into a space of feeling the love that I give to those that I have the privilege of serving. For me to begin to start feeling that love and to begin caring for myself in the same way in which I care and tend to others. That there's varying degrees of this, because there's so much beauty that has unfolded in my life, and my reality, continues to mirror back to me these changes and these, the work that I've done internally to clearing away of the debris of whatever is blocking the fullest expression of my divinity in this timeline. And so last year it felt this disconnect of I almost can't feel the beauty of my life. And in self-inquiry, in meditation, which is essential if we are walking the spiritual path, if we are truly intending to evolve, that we take time out of our days to contemplate, to go inward, to ask ourselves deeper questions, to begin to formulate a greater spectrum of what's going on, what is underpinning. There's always a belief that underpins some of these subconscious programs or patterns or things that we latch onto, that there's a belief that is held underneath that allows for these to take hold in space in our body. Until we get to the belief and we start working at it, then that begins to change the nature of how we allow these thoughts or these subconscious patternings or programs to affect us. And so it became paramount, and I know that this is a collective wound that many of us struggle with, is around worthiness. That we have somehow along the line, may it be in this timeline, may it be collective, may it be from our upbringing or not, this notion of I'm not worthy of receiving love, I'm not worthy of fill in the blank, or that we have to perform or work or do something, that there are conditions in place in order for us to receive and feel that love. And so hyper aware of this and knowing that this belief, again, working at it for over 10 years, plugging away, chipping away, there's dimensions and layers to this. And but that was my hope. Was I was like, let's get to the root at where I adopted this belief so that I can unhook this, heal it, be with it, feel it, transmute it, release it in whatever way that needs possible, so that I can be free and I can start feeling my own love, and I can allow in these beautiful reflections of what's unfolding outside of me. And so again, now fast forward to this experience, and I'm in the journey with the Iboga, and I'm having these visions of these babies, and it's, and I'm feeling the medicine, and I'm excited, but I'm also a bit perplexed because this isn't where I wanted to go. Like, I'm here to do deep work. Let's go in the trenches. Like, when I made the commitment on this path that I'm all in, I'm all in. As scary and as dark as it gets, that I know that that's the way through greater degrees of wholeness. And so I've begun to start seeing, challenges as opportunities to evolve. And I believe that those that are on the awakened collective, on the path to truly evolve, understand this perception, this way that we approach life and the challenges that life has, as life is school for the soul. And that we are here in physical embodiments to each have our own curriculum, and that this is part of my curriculum. And so again, we move through. I receive a second dose, and more of the visions that I saw were houses and buildings and things that didn't really make any sense in relation to what I was intending to experience and to go into. And so we moved through the evening. It was very taxing on the body. It's very hard to stand up. Falling over. Your vision when your eyes are open it's really hard to look at lights. There was vomiting. There was, deep purging that occurred several times for me on the first night, but I wasn't necessarily connected to any visions of what that was that I was releasing or processing. And so we close out ceremony the first night. Again, this is hours, 10 hours that we're, going through this journey. No sleep whatsoever, even if you try. I just lay there, but there was so much electricity moving through my body. And again, primarily in my head, I just felt this intense vibratory, sensation, again, with very electric and hot sensations through primarily the heart center, the third center, and the second center, these energy stations in the body that I knew were being worked on. And so we move into the next day, which was really a day of just absolute total rest. Everybody was laid out on the lawn. Just, it looked like we'd been to a deep battle. And when we started the ceremony the second night, again, I was feeling very emotional because I knew that we had 2 nights, and I didn't get to where I wanted to on the first night. And from what I understood, the second night was going to be a bit of a lighter experience. The first night was meant to be this death process of really coming up against yourself, and the energy of Iboga is very different from ayahuasca in the sense that sometimes ayahuasca just like comes out of nowhere and is just like jarring you. But I find that Iboga is a more steady push, but it just keeps leaning up against that which it wants to reveal to us. And so I was ready to just, again, to go all in, take me wherever, however dark it needs to go. There's so much of my childhood, my youth that I don't remember. It's just, it's been blocked out, but I know that it exists. It's all held in the subconscious. It's all held in our Akashic. And so I was very concerned about Michael because he was very weak and still not doing well when we started the experience, but the shaman was very mild with her the second night. And I think I received a pretty hefty dose. I didn't count the amount of capsules and powder that I received, but I lay down on my mat, and it's also dry. It just dries out your mouth so much. I was drinking a lot of water. I lay down, and I'm just laying there waiting for the medicine to hit. And I don't know, maybe an hour and a half or something goes by, and my bladder's calling me to the bathroom. And so I stand up, and I stand up just fine, and I start taking a walk, and my walking is just fine. And I knew in that moment, I was like, I'm not going to connect in the same way that I did the previous night. And so I all of a sudden started getting a bit irritated, and then I started getting angry, and I started going into this whole process of frustration, which this is not new. This was a familiar experience of feeling like what's wrong with me. I went through this whole preparation. I've created this space. I'm here, like I'm ready, willing, able to do the work, and hardly anything. And so I was really upset, and when I got out of the bathroom, I just said, I need to take some time, and I don't want to go into the temple right now. I want to give myself the opportunity to accept that I'm not going to get the experience that I thought I was going to experience. And so I was sitting out at an altar just crying. The shaman came and very, in a stern way, nudged me to come back inside, that I needed to be back in the circle with where the ceremony was being performed. And I agreed. Again, just frustrated, at witnessing such profound experiences that other individuals were having, and feeling like I'd been cheated. That was the story I was telling myself. And then the other stories that kept coming through is I was like, I'm not worthy to experience this plant. It was the same root wound and limiting belief that I came to work on, that I was then experiencing in a very powerful way, because medicine has a way of amplifying that which we're already, perceiving, experiencing, feeling. And so I'm just sobbing for quite some time. And some of it was I was feeling sorry for myself. And I just, there was so much that I really thought that this, like I was going to go into a storyline of some things in my past that I haven't been able to access, and that just wasn't the case. And so I understood at a certain time, I said, I'm going to, I have a choice of how I'm going to experience this experience. And so I can sit here and again be irritated, or I can open my focus and begin to, see the bigger picture of the beauty of this whole experience. I didn't get into the conversation with you all around the profundity of the meeting, the soul recognition, the soul's recognition between myself and the shaman and her husband as well. Even her daughter said, I just feel like you're my aunt. Is it okay that I call you that? And I said, yeah, it's absolutely, and I'm sure some of you have had these experiences where you see someone and you've never met them before, but you know that you know them. And so having several days with these individuals and the ability for them both to connect, again, to their guides, to my guides, to be able to pull certain information out about my gifts as a healer, some of my soul's expression, certain things that were also shared about Michael that he doesn't share publicly, really anchored in the knowing that these beings are very connected, that this is all true. And it had been many years since I had really been in a state of I feel like when we have mystical experiences that transcend physical reality or the way in which we've been taught, how life works, that it's the brain tries to make sense of these things, that it tries to analyze, you can't make sense of the nonsense. When something happens that's beyond the five senses, again, it's the human condition to try to make sense of this. And so there was all these little synchronicities that were, given in the time at certain points in the ceremony. Shaman, would look at me or call me out and give me, again, some information about me, which was, it blew my mind. And then at another point, they paused and shared that Bufo had never been on their property, and that Bufo on behalf of me was welcome. I began feeling like I was with family that I had never met in this timeline. And it was just this deep acknowledgement and reverence of my work, of my soul's expression, and the journey and the type of healer that I elected to be, and really, moving through kind of a Navy SEAL initiation of life in order to go into the depths of darkness, to understand darkness, to then, be catapulted into the light. And so to the degree that I've been able to be stretched by life from the opposite polarity of the depths of darkness that I lived, has allowed for me to be a container to hold a unique, a specific, expression of light. And so anyhow, as I'm moving through this process on the second day, and I'm just taking all this in, right? Because I'm really working to open my awareness and to see the magic that's going on beyond just taking the medicine. And I started feeling a tremendous amount of gratitude for just the beauty and the specific attention to detail of everything in the ceremony was it was so rich and it was so beautiful. And so I began to just really move into a state of gratitude, again, vacillating back and forth between feeling sorry for myself and frustrated, and then this is an incredible experience, and let's be here in this now. So as we're closing the ceremony, and as we moved through the night, I had taken more Iboga, but I knew at a certain time that I wasn't going to have visions and I wasn't going to connect in the same way that I'd had the previous night, that will be for another time. I started to, again, feel just this separation, this notion of separation that continued to perpetuate more tears and some just deep, deep sadness. When the ceremony closed and I was able to share, and I will continue to, it is a fact that as I shared with them, that I know in this lifetime, in this body, in this incarnation, that I will fully awaken, that my soul has led me through all of these journeys and all of this remembrance, and I trust that this is the one that I will fully dissolve that notion of separation between me and the I am. And it just wasn't going to be in the ceremony, and that's okay. Sometimes these are, it's a process. And ceremony, so I shared just how moved I was with the beauty of the ceremony, the beauty of the connection with the people, with the land, and that, it was the most beautiful ceremony of my life thus far, and that I'll always remember this first experience. Ceremony closes, everyone's hungry because we've been on fast, Michael was starving and he's like, I'm going to go eat. And I said, I'm going to stay back a little bit. I just felt called to linger around the temple and the land there. It was about a 1.5 mile trek from where the temple is to where the house and guest house was. And I actually then felt like, okay, well, maybe I should go eat. And I started walking back towards the house. And then I was carrying my bag of rapé, my tobacco. And very clearly and loudly, the rapé was like, go, turn around and sit with me. And so I said, okay. So I turn around and I walk back across the bridge and I find a space to sit and to meditate and to connect with some rapé. I take the rapé, I pray over it, I receive it. And all of a sudden I start to cry, but it's deeper. I feel that the rapé was able to reach deeper into, like the tears were on the surface, like there wasn't much of an, I don't know how to explain this. It was a deeper integration of what I had already been experiencing, and as it was pulling out the tears and then pulling out the purge as I was vomiting, I could feel this pain that had been in my body, primarily in my neck. I had an attempt to end my life almost 20 years ago that injured my neck, and so I typically have points in which energy gets trapped in this area, and I've always thought that it was from this experience. But as I'm in this process and this pain is beginning to unravel, I can feel the pain coming out from my neck, but I'm also llorando. I'm just getting English and Spanish mixed up. The depth of tears that I was crying was pulling at this pain that was not even mine. That I was being told, because now I'm receiving auditory messages from the plant, things that I was asking for that was coming through again, that was making me just, there was messages about being a mother. And then I was feeling into my own mother and her own pain and all of the pains and traumas that she's experienced, and recognizing that I had adopted a lot of her pain emotionally that had been storing itself materially, physically in my body. And so as I'm forgiving myself and relinquishing the holding to this that's not even mine, my body started to heal. I'm like, I haven't been able to move my neck, this far back, and I don't even know how long. And this energy started to open up in my hands, which took me back to this first vision that I had when I broke through with ayahuasca. And all of this stuff is going on, and I'm making the connection of the souls, the shaman and her husband and this land and this whole unique and process that I'm having outside of the experience. And I'm releasing and I'm crying and I'm purging. And my body started to kind of like tense up in this way, like just so much power moving through my body. And so it was about an hour-long process before I could, like get up and walk and was then ready to now have food and nourish my body and rest. And so I felt a sense of deeper peace after that experience. And I was so grateful that I honored my, my connection to the spirits of the medicines that I work with. Ate a really lovely meal and rested. And that night, at about between 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm having a dream, and I'm awakened from my dream. And I knew that Iboga was still working with me based on the vision that I saw when I woke up. As I'm waking up and as my eyes are starting to settle into the room, I'm seeing this mountainscape. But again, it looks very much like I was seeing the visions with Iboga. And I was like, oh, okay. And as I'm opening and adjusting, my heart center just went poof, and my heart center just opened. And I'm feeling so much love, so much gratitude. I mean, I can begin to start feeling it again now, but it wasn't coming from outside of me. And I'm recognizing in this moment, because tears are just flowing from my face, and my heart is turned on, and there's just beaming electric love. That the love from me to me is like this bridge, like the bridge was created, like it's there. And I'm experiencing this in real time. And I laid there for, it was probably close to an hour of just absolute bliss and deep gratitude and thanking Iboga. And so when the next morning came, we're closing out the retreat with our final breakfast. And I left on cloud 9. And there was so much humility and teachings in this experience because, again, I had these clear intentions of what I wanted to experience. What I wasn't hyper aware of was the expectations that I had on how these intentions should be fulfilled. I am a visual learner, and so when visions come, they're very, very powerful and very profound, and they are tattooed within me. But that's not, I'm reminded again that we don't come to medicine spaces simply for the experience on the mat or the visions or that this is a part of it. But again, the intelligence, the sentience, the spirit of the medicine is working in its own unique, specific way. And so I realized that Stephanie had to get out of the way, and that in a state of relaxation and in rest, that I was able to, my ego, the mind, the expectations, move out of the way, and boom, here you go. And that is really what we're after. That's really what I'm after. Is great if the experience with ayahuasca, bufo, is profound and beautiful in that space. But why did I come to the medicine path? Why am I seeking to explore and work with these sacred medicines? It's the lasting effect. It's the changes in my embodiment as a soul in this human form, that I'm looking to meet those shadows, to create greater degrees of wholeness and of the greatest expression of my soul. And that this was a huge piece for me to start feeling, the beauty that I am and that I give and that I serve from this space to other people, but for me. And so I am just reveling in this magnificence of being present, being fully present, of feeling me and my beauty and my love to me, of being mom to me, of becoming my own best friend. I mean, that's already been a process, but like feeling that and feeling that excitement. And I will say almost every night after that, Michael and I did a beautiful integration at a remote beach in Brazil that was like out of this world. It was a really sacred way to be able to integrate and to allow for these shifts in awareness and for us to, share our love with each other and the experience in Brazil before returning home. And And even returning home, I've had several mystical moments where I'm asleep and I have reactivations. My heart is just exploding with love. Um, my meditations have been off the chain. My ability to activate DMT through breath is almost instantaneous since Iboga. Um, and my calendar has been quite full. I'm so deeply blessed to have the privilege of again, sharing the transmission through my auric field and the work that I'm doing. Sharing these teachings and my experience to those that are called to this, but also witnessing how, these changes in consciousness, in my heart space, in my body, how that is translating in the experiences and my service to others is magnifying as well, which is really beautiful. Um, Also, I've noticed tremendous shifts in my ability to, the subconscious patterns still exist, but it feels like before Iboga, they would have me and just have a grip on me, and it was like I was in a chokehold, and just the ability to not react to that level of intensity of aggression from the critic or the judge, or these different parts of the egoic construct, that seems to have diminished. I mean, it's still there, but it's not in the same way. There feels like there is a deeper awareness, and less of those grooves of those neural programs and patternings, that they aren't as deeply grooved. I am again. I just I feel so grateful, and to witness to this will be my final kind of piece. I know this has been long, and so thank you for those that have sat and listened to this experience. That the I was holding retreat. We had ayahuasca retreat. God, 9 days ago, a little over a week ago, and on the morning of the retreat, I was serving in a private ceremony the day before, and I got the clear guidance of, you must sit with Bufo full dose now, because it had been several months as I was preparing and for Iboga. And so I sat with a macro dose of Bufo on Friday, 2 Fridays ago. And it was so beautiful to experience again the work that I'd done with Iboga, because I was able to feel even greater degrees of love in my body. And then I can happily share that as we moved into retreat, it's, again, all last year, I did not really connect to ayahuasca. And I had the most beautiful connection with ayahuasca this last retreat. Again, it was this continuity of the experience of deepening love, of me deepening and understanding that we are all love, that this entire universe, the fabric, is made of love, and that all other things are in many ways distortions. But because we have this divine power within us, that we can lock in and allow for whatever it is that we're focusing our awareness on, to breathe life into that. I am just humbled, deeply humbled, again. And so what I wish to impart is that, if you feel the call, to trust the call, and to trust in the intelligence of the spirit that is guiding you, the plant itself. That we often have ideas, and we hear other people's experiences and listen to podcasts and read reviews and, scientific studies, and we think, this is what's going to happen for me. And often we can get in our way and then think that it's not working. And so my experience, really has been that the magic happened outside of the ceremony, that the spirit, the consciousness of the plant absolutely is fulfilling my intentions, my desires, just not in the way that I expected. And so powerful teachings, beautiful medicine. I mean, I trust that there will be some hard journeys ahead, but I am honored and so deeply grateful to now have this new spirit ally in my auric field, and to continue to explore it, when the calling arises again. And so thank you so much. I deeply appreciate, I do feel that all of the pieces of leading up for you to have a better understanding of the experience and what I experienced, and then thereafter, I know there's a building of it. And so thank you for your time and for your presence and for, hearing this out. And just honored to be walking this path, to be walking alongside of many of you that are choosing to dissolve, these barriers, these blockages, these delusions that have kept us blocked from our fullest connection to the divine that lives within us and all around us, and it's all love. And so I look forward to sharing more love and space and medicine with those that are called to this. So blessings, all my love. Ciao.